Today we're going to go over 4 essential PowerPoint animations that you should learn before you make your next PowerPoint. Now for all the PowerPoints that I make, whether they're for opening statements, expert directs, or if I'm making webinar materials or CLE materials, there's really only 4 PowerPoint animations that I ever use, and I'm going to go over them with you today. The first one is an appear animation. I'm going to head over to my desktop now, and it's the simplest. I'm going to go to, I have just a basic PowerPoint setup, and I'm going to go to the insert ribbon and insert a picture. And I've got this document here. I've converted a PDF to a JPEG. If you don't know how to do that, hit the link up here. I will post a link to a video that covers that process in case you don't know how to do that. But for those of you who already know how to do that, I've got my image here, and the first things that I usually do is I'll do some of the treatments that I like to do on it to make it look a little bit nicer. I'll put a very thin background on it, and I'll put a drop shadow on it real quick. So now I've got my document and it's ready to work with. That one's a little bit dark. Let's make it a little bit smaller and make this one maybe gray. All right, that looks a little bit better. So now I've got a thin gray border and a drop shadow on my document. And now the first thing I'm gonna do is make it appear when I want it to. So with this document selected, I'm gonna go to the animations ribbon. And the first one in the list is appear. I'm gonna do that. Now when I do that appear animation, what that looks like is this. And I'll hit Shift F5 to start the PowerPoint at this slide. And with the appear animation, first the document isn't there, and then when I'm ready I can click and then the document just snap and appears. I'll hit escape to jump back out of my PowerPoint and get working in. So that's the appear animation. A lot of time I'll use that when I'm talking about a document, or if I have a circle or an arrow that I want to suddenly point to something, that's when I'll use the appear animation. The next animation that I want to talk to you guys about is the fade animation, and it's very similar to the appear animation. It does the same thing. Let's go ahead and insert that picture again from my desktop, and we'll put it there, make it a little bit smaller so it fits in my slide, and outline and shadow. So we got that there. On my animations ribbon, this time I'm going to hit this arrow so I can see all the animations that are available to me, and I'm gonna pick fade. Now the way the fade animation works, it works just like the appear, where something will pop up on the screen, but instead of it just snapping to, it'll slowly from black kind of fade in. And so let me take a look at that one. So I'll hit Shift F5 so we can look at our slideshow from this current slide. And now I've got the document, I can talk about it, say during this trial you're gonna hear about this marketing agreement, and then when I'm ready I can click and it slowly appears on the screen. So a little bit more gradual, a very subtle difference, but there are certain times, especially when I'm working with photos, and if there's victim photos or family photos, those kinds of things, if it's a personal injury case, that's where I might use the fade animation rather than an appear animation. But either way, I use those animations a lot to get things onto the screen. So the next animation we'll work with is now, once we have things on the screen, how do we make it more interesting for people to look at? And that's the remaining 2. And so I'm gonna go to slide 3 that I have here, and I have that same document here that we've been working with. And I'm gonna take the animation off of this by going to the animation pane and just deleting that animation. And what I'm gonna do on this zoom animation, I want to make a call out. And so I wanna have a specific section or a paragraph of this document that I make bigger. All right, so what I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna make a copy of that by hitting Control D, and I have an exact copy of that image. I'm gonna right click and crop it to just the paragraph that I want. So let's say I just want this paragraph here. And then I'll make it bigger by moving it over to the left, grabbing it by a corner and stretching it out. And I grabbed it by the corner and held down Shift just to make sure I don't accidentally stretch or skew the image. So I've got this document, and if you just looked at it like this, it might be a little bit confusing as to what we're looking at or where it's coming from, and this is where the zoom animation comes in handy. And so I'll come back to the animations ribbon, and here is this one called Zoom. And you got to see a little bit of a preview of there, but let's go to my slideshow view. We could talk about, once we have this document up, maybe in the previous slide we faded the image in, and then we could talk about the specific paragraph. And here's what it says. And you click and then everything appeared. I'll hit escape so I can get back to it. And so now we've got this we understand where in the document it comes from, and we've got a chance to see it much bigger so that everyone can read it, so it's nice and legible. And so that's something that you always want to think about is when you're using PowerPoint or any trial presentation software, is to make things pretty much as big as you can so that way everyone can read it. Now the last thing I might do is to then underline something or highlight something that's on this screen, and that's where we'll go to the next slide. And what I'll do is I'll just copy this call out that I made for the zoom animation and paste it, and then I'm going to underline something, and then I'll use a wipe animation for that. So let's insert a line from the shapes, and let's say display or sell seller's property is an important phrase from this paragraph. I'm gonna click and drag a horizontal line, and just to make sure it's exactly horizontal, I'm gonna hold down Shift when I do that. Then I've got a line, but it's not very easy to see, and it's not exactly where I want it. So I'm gonna move it a little bit and extend it out. And then I'll adjust it to make it red and a lot thicker. So we'll go to the shape outline, change the color, shape outline again, go to weight, and I usually just pick 6. And then I might also then add a little bit of a shadow to it just to emphasize that this is not something from the original document. So I've got this there. And the last thing I'll do is I'll add a wipe animation to it. And so with the animations, I'll add this wipe. Now it's going to be really subtle when I apply it. You won't even see what it's doing. And that's because the default wipe animation behavior is to go from bottom up. And what we need to do is make it go from left to right. Now, not everyone likes it. It's very skeuomorphic, but I like to show the underlining animation to emphasize 2 things. One, this is not part of the original text. This is emphasis that we're adding, but also it says, here's the part that we really want you to focus on. And so it's like a moving object to kind of grab everyone's attention. Like when you take children's pictures at like a photo studio or something, they have like a stuffed animal or a bell. It's kind of like that, the visual version of that. But to change the behavior of that wipe, we have to come over here to this section which says Effect Options, and we'll choose from the left. So then it'll make it animate as if you're seeing someone digitally write something on a screen. So let's take a look at that all together. So now we've got the document. The first click will be our zoom animation that we used, and then the next click will be the wipe animation. So that way we're emphasizing it exactly when we want. Something else that I might do with something like this is I might also automate when this appears, so that way the wipe automatically appears maybe after a half a second or a second. So that way whoever the attorney is that's controlling this presentation doesn't have to remember all the different clicks. So basically once it gets bigger, then all the other stuff, annotations that happen to this call out will all kind of happen automatically. That's what I normally do. But those are the 4 animations that I use, almost all of them. Some of them, like the appear, the fade, and the zoom, all have reverse animations so that you can make them disappear from the screen using exit animations versus entrance. But I kind of consider them the same thing because the behavior is the same. Either something appears or it disappears. Either something fades in or fades out. Either something zooms in or it zooms out, and that's kind of the same thing one way, coming in or coming out. Those are different behaviors that you can add to your documents, photos, or just parts of your callouts. If you have any questions about those animations, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'd love to talk to you guys down there. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.